Welcome to the Excellence at Work podcast, where we explore the strategies and best practices that drive business success. I'm Rachel Cooke, COO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our podcast, along with members of our executive team. In each episode, we'll dive into the latest trends, insights, and real-world examples from some of the most exciting leaders from organizations worldwide. Be part of our journey and learn from the best as we discuss innovative approaches and cutting-edge technologies for talent management, learning and development, leadership, diversity and inclusion, and more. Hi, I'm Rachel Cooke, the COO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our Excellence at Work podcast. I'd like to welcome Todd Miller from AllenCom. Hi, Todd. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
It's great to have you here. And just to give our audience and listeners a little bit about your background, Todd is the Chief Technology Officer from AllenCom. He heads up many different capacities at AllenCom. He's been there for more than 33 years. He's led and guided the company's technical innovations, including authoring tools, learning portals, simulation engines, and AR/VR solutions. He's also nurtured the expertise and abilities of his team. In his current role, he oversees their strategy for emerging technology and defines the service and solutions they offer for Fortune 1000 clients. And today we are going to be talking about the optimization of the learning tech ecosystem and how it empowers the learner experience. And so, Todd, with your background in the work that you do at AllenCom, what are some of the challenges that you see your clients facing and experience with their learning tech ecosystems?
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, it's nice to be here. This is a good question. There's a lot of challenges out there that our clients face in terms of their own learning tech ecosystem. We have kind of a diverse range of clients from various industries, from healthcare to finance to retail to technology, government, manufacturing, higher education. And they come to us for all sorts of reasons, whether that's skill development, performance, onboarding, leadership planning, change management, compliance, you name it. But inevitably, one of the biggest challenges that almost all of them face is how to deliver a highly impactful, engaging learning experience that moves the needle on a business objective or KPI. And so as we start to engage with our clients, we see a lot of large ecosystems, and depending on the client, but this large ecosystem is oftentimes fragmented. There's lots of tools and lots of platforms. They could have multiple learning management systems, multiple authoring tools, multiple analytics, HRIS systems, CRM systems, etc. And that fragmentation often leads to some problems. One of the problems is just simply, are they integrated together? Is the data flowing between them? Are they interoperable? And oftentimes that question is no, or the answer is no to that. The clients struggle with gathering and analyzing and acting on learning data across these larger ecosystems. And oftentimes that then leads to what their objective is, which is to create a highly engaging and impactful learning experience. Multiple systems often equate to poor learning experiences. And that also leads to what we call a conservative design, where learning and development people aren't taking advantage of their entire learning ecosystem. They're only looking at a specific system for a specific audience, and they're not designing learning programs based on what the learners need, but instead on what they can handle as far as technical integration. And so there are other challenges that our clients face as well with these ecosystems. One of them is data blindness. When you have lots of disparate systems, those systems all are collecting data, and yet they're not talking to one another, and they're not visible to the L&D group at all. And so, without that information, teams kind of are missing out on some really valuable insights and into kind of their learning initiatives. The other challenge that they face is when they have such a large ecosystem, but it's not working for them. Sometimes the ecosystem gets larger depending on the business unit, and specifically if they need something for an initiative, they might go out and adopt a new technology. That leads to a lot of overlap in terms of functionality, but it also leads overlap in terms of actual budget as well. So that's another one. And then the governance of this large ecosystem is also problematic as well. Who owns what? Who's in charge of what? Each platform seems to have a different maybe team that's in charge of it, or a person that's in charge of it. And bringing those people all together to make that ecosystem work well together can be a challenge for most learning and development teams. They may not have the technical background, they may not have the skill set. It's a daunting task to really try to navigate that world. You're dealing with lots of different teams, lots of different players, and you have to speak somewhat of their language and have an understanding of what's going on, within that learning ecosystem.
And what we've been seeing from our research, the transition, when you say around governance, the transition to having more of a regulated learning or more of a federated learning model than when we saw the shift going where departments were becoming deregulated or they were kind of operating on their own in different areas of the business.
Yeah.
And now we see this shift, and it's interesting because we saw this shift happen over a decade ago where they were all regulated and federalized, and then they felt the need to be able to have more autonomous or more ability to make decisions as they needed. So now I'm wondering what is your thoughts around why this is happening? And a couple of things we're seeing is that it is because it's becoming so complex, and because of some of these challenges that you just mentioned, that to be able to optimize it, there needs to be some control, especially at the core function.
Yeah, I think there's several factors that play along with that. One is when you're decentralized and you're not talking and you're siloed with one another, you may end up spending more budget on different technologies, et cetera. And there has been a lot of consolidation in the last few years of platforms within large organizations. There was a trend to move, learning management system and learning experiences back into an HRIS system. You see that with some of the bigger players, et cetera, that are doing more than just learning. They're also doing something else. And that's consolidated, I think, not only the platforms, but has centralized some of those teams as well. By the way, besides having a fragmented learning ecosystem, we also see clients that have really consolidated down to just kind of one or two systems. Mm-hmm. And they also experience similar issues. How do I get a learning experience, an engaging learning experience to actually work well in this type of system? Mm-hmm. And so, you see it from both sides, which is fragmented versus consolidated. They're struggling. L&D teams struggle with that objective, right?
It's finding that right balance, because if there's too controlled, then you do have lack of sometimes scalability or meeting the needs of your employees at the time that they need it, based on the decision making process, or depending on the rollout, how it's being rolled out to what department and what function at what given time. Even though the scale has improved in far as being able to roll out systems or the use of technology with the scale of technology. What are some of the things that you see from an instructional standpoint that that um, that that are being challenged today, or that um,
Yeah.
the learning organization needs?
Yeah. So from a kind of that instructional standpoint, um, you really, we start to break down kind of that anatomy of what is a highly impactful and engaging learning experience. What are the different components that go into that? And one that stands out is just simply, can they collect and measure and analyze the data? And we did have a webinar. I don't know if it was within the last year or two, where we were asking our clients and others who attended, specifically, what are some of the top issues that you have in collecting and analyzing and applying that data inside of a learning experience? And the top four answers were, we don't have the proper metrics, meaning they didn't really even know what to measure.
Mhm.
They don't have the technology to support it. So again, they're running up against maybe a large fragmented system or a very consolidated system, and they just simply don't know how to use that system, or they can't get the data out of it. They don't have the time or the staff to do it. That really speaks to more about skill set in my mind. Just simply, I'm not sure we have the resources and the skill set here to pull that off. And then, it's difficult to link learning to outcomes. And that's really the insight, the analytics here, and trying to help those L&D teams link that data to an outcome. So that's one of the things they struggle with. And then there's lots of other things that they would like to use in a highly impactful, engaging learning experience. Things like a streamlined, engaging, centralized landing page. A lot of these systems, you have users that are bouncing from one platform to another, and I don't know how many clicks it takes to finally get to the learning path or the activity or the content they need to consume. But it's apparent that it's very frustrating for L&D folks when they can't put a view together, a landing page together, which shows everything that is going to happen in that specific journey for that specific learner. There are other things like they want innovative learning activities, no multiple choice, more than multiple choice, more than drag and drop, more than presentation activities. They want some higher level activities like personalization, action plans, reflection journals, micro boosters. They're looking to really take that learning experience and move the needle on that business objective or KPI. And they're realizing that this is the vehicle, that learning experience, which is going to move that needle, drive them into new territory. And they get frustrated when they can't do things like discussion boards or community and collaborative project-based work. These are these are strategies that often will bear more fruit in terms of, is the user engaged, but is the user thinking and consuming and acquiring, the behaviors or the skills or the competencies that we need them to acquire to move that business objective forward. So yeah, there's just a lot of different components that go into a highly engaging learning experience that I think L&D folks struggle with and seem to have, they're tied to their swim lane in terms of, this is the technology, this is how I can use it, and they can't break out of that.
And do you
Correct.
feel that they can't break out of it because the organization won't let them, or do they feel constrained because they don't have the ability to make the change, or they just not leveraging it the best? What is that? What is the dynamic that you're seeing
Yeah,
most?
I think there's a lot of variables there.
Mm-hmm.
One, a lot of L&D teams, just as I mentioned before, it's a daunting task to try to navigate that learning ecosystem and understand all of the different technologies. There are probably systems in their ecosystem, platforms within their ecosystem, that have APIs that could be utilized to
Mm-hmm.
provide some of this higher level strategies, et cetera. But they're not necessarily, developers or programmers or data scientists or, engineers in that regard. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a daunting task from that standpoint. So there's a little bit of hesitancy on the part of the L&D team to actually tackle that that uh,
Mm-hmm.
that challenge. I think because there's so many different platforms and sometimes they're siloed and under different ownership within the organization. I think there's a little bit of pushback as well, like, oh, we haven't done this before. We don't know what you're trying to do. And that could be complex and out of our routine. And so there might be some of that as well. Really, what they need is some help from that regard, some help around being able to navigate that world, being able to talk tech, being able to look and evaluate the different programs, not just what's coming out of the box, what you see in terms of functionality in the in the platform itself, but what are the extensions? What are the endpoints that they have?
Mm-hmm.
What are the ways that we can access data within this system, et cetera? Um, and that's
And
really kind of where I think we're trying to step in and fill some of that void for them.
and do you still see companies that are lacking the tech skills? And do these organizations, do they need to build, and is it more technical capabilities within their teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the organization as a whole has those capabilities, those skill sets, but
Mm-hmm.
they're doing other things, and they're not allocated necessarily as a resource to the learning and development team, and so that's a challenge, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. These are resources that are often tied up in mission critical operational type stuff. But the L&D team, certainly, if they can have a good working relationship with these
Mm-hmm.
various owners, with these various IT, infosec, data privacy, whoever it is, if they can start having those types of relationships and meetings with them, it certainly can expose kind of a new world in terms
Sure.
of what's possible.
And how can we help L&D have, or how can we help L&D be able to provide better learning to their to the organization?
Yeah. Um, so I think that, as mentioned, oftentimes that client learning tech ecosystem is the stumbling block for most L&D groups. It's not that they can't design um, these highly effective, impactful learning experiences, but when it actually comes time to lay that learning experience down on top of that learning ecosystem, and they realize there are issues, they can't do this, they can't do that, that's
Mm-hmm.
where I think we can come in and help from that standpoint. Um, again, bringing this back to the purpose of why do we need an enhanced learning experience? And it really is to move the needle of those business objectives, right? And that's the vehicle that's going to drive that forward. So this is kind of important from a standpoint of, are you utilizing everything that you have, or could you optimize or augment your learning ecosystem in order to get a better learning experience for your end users, and in turn a better engagement and performance, you know, from both the learner and then as an organization. So that said, we help our clients in various ways through learning tech services, so they don't have to tackle that system alone. Our tech offerings really are focused in four main areas. One, technical advisory services, learning ecosystem optimization, learning technologies, and measurement and analytics. And that technical advisory service is we can come in and do a technical analysis, which in my opinion, is almost as important as, let's say, a needs analysis. Um, you need a technical analysis to be able to understand the core systems within that learning ecosystem. You need to be able to break that down. You need to look at your different delivery systems, your content creation, your authoring, whether or not it has collaboration, engagement, gamification, personalization. What are the content report repositories that you can take advantage of? What is the authentication process? And we can come in as a tech consultant and work with the L&D team to set up meetings with the various owners and stakeholders of the disparate systems within this ecosystem, and start to break down, what are the capabilities of this system? Does it have the ability to do gamification? Does it have the ability to measure this type of data? Or can it integrate with other systems and do data transfers across? So that's really one of the things that we think that we can help L&D teams do, is help them take stock of what they have and navigate that large world, talk with the appropriate IT folks, etc. So
Absolutely. And what are some of well, let's talk about generative AI. How are you incorporating that into your development programs?
yeah, so generative AI is, well, it's going to be revolutionary, but it's going to take some time to get there. I think what we're seeing most in generative AI right now is around, recommendation engines and chatbots and um, uh, AI agents within the system. Um, I think there's actually a way to use some of the AI um, inside of learning experiences, inside of learning activities itself. For example, let's say we have a quiz or an assessment engine, um, and that assessment engine is delivering multiple choice questions, single select, multiple choice questions. That's fine, but rather than using multiple and single select multiple choice questions, if we could turn that and use open free response questions, and then use AI to actually analyze, both from a semantic analysis as well as a sentiment analysis, and provide a response to that that's more personalized, that's more adaptive to that specific learner. And then I think you can do that, and we're already seeing this happen with AI agents that are providing a specific persona in the learning activity and are engaging in a conversation, maybe a crucial conversation between a manager and an employee, for example, and setting up a scenario or a simulation, if you will, that allows more dynamic, personalized. Obviously, that AI would need to be restricted to an authoritative domain source, and not necessarily, that is specific to that company. But these are the types of things that I think you're going to be able to see here in the near future with some of learning technologies that are coming out. We're obviously looking at all of this, and with the learning ecosystem, we've architected learning technologies that can take advantage of calling APIs in different systems to be able to execute on some of these AI learning strategies that might be coming up in the near future.
Well, they're very exciting, right? There's just so much that's going to be offered, and there's limited opportunities, and it just keeps changing every day. So it's going to be exciting to see where we are next year. And as we look into 2025 and beyond, what are some of the things, or what is your vision of what the learning ecosystem or tech ecosystem can support, and what will it look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So kind of near term versus a little further out. Near term being 1 to 4 years, maybe far term being 5 to 10 years. One, I think in the near term, learning ecosystems need to become more cohesive. And I think you're going to see that not necessarily through consolidation, not a one-size-fits-all approach, but rather through data transfers and integrations and services like ours that can go in and augment a learning ecosystem. And that facilitation of let's say a data repository, whether that be a data lake or a data warehouse, where multiple systems can start to transfer their data and access data in a much more streamlined process than individual integrations with one another. That's already happened, and that's going to continue to happen in these larger tech ecosystems to basically become more cohesive and to give us the data that we need. Some of the other things I think, around AR, VR, I think that's going to become a little more popular in terms of immersive experiences, and they may double as expert performance analysis in the flow of work. Those are types of things that you might see near term. I think far term, the learning ecosystem will be even more integrated in the flow of work, and that will largely be because of AI. I mean, I think predictive analytics will start to become prescriptive analytics. And you'll see that the AI agents are continuously monitoring and creating custom learning experiences for you, based on your job role, based on organizational KPIs, based on trends, any number of things. But they'll be a little bit more in your face, if you will, in terms of, hey, we think you should go through this activity or this type of learning experience, refresh your skill set here, et cetera. And then far term, who knows? We might be wearing interfaces on our clothes, et cetera, that might collect and present information to us as well. So wearables the Internet of Things might be coming to learning from that standpoint. So yeah, far term, I think, who knows? I do think AI will probably revolutionize the industry in many ways, in terms of providing that personalized coach experience that we really couldn't achieve in the past, simply because we were dealing with mass groups, mass audiences, and canned curriculum. As AI becomes more integrated, I think it will have that ability to provide that personalized coaching and mentoring that is kind of that ideal state, in the future.
Right. It'll be for everyone. Where right now, I think it's for some. I think it's happening in pockets, or indirectly, depending on if you decide to wear an Apple Watch, right? It's kind of
Right.
monitoring your search, your communication without even realizing it. So I think I see maybe it having more purpose and more and linking more to our learning environment for the learning. And you see this where it happens in your personal environment, and then eventually it translates into the workplace where you start doing
Yeah.
it, whether it's using a mobile phone, and now we're using it in the workplace for everything. Or they started to do it with Google Glass,
Right.
and wear wearables, but it just wasn't quite
Yeah.
perfected. So
Right.
it'll be interesting. I anticipate that we'll each have a robot assistant,
Hovering above our heads,
or a so I think that we'll be seeing a lot more of those types of devices where
Yeah.
they are not just for fun, but they are actually becoming an aid to. I wouldn't mind it for someone helping me clean up after dinner or cook in the evening too.
There you go. That would be awesome, actually.
Serving our office lunch and
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Exactly. Looking forward to all of that. Yeah, it could be a very interesting future in
mhm.
that regard.
It certainly will be. 10 years, fast forward. Actually, let's slow it down a little bit.
I was just gonna say, I'm not sure I'm ready for another 10 years yet, but yeah.
No, same here. Well, Todd, thank you. Thanks for joining me today. It's been an interesting talk, and I appreciate you sharing your perspective. Anything else, Todd, do you want to wrap up with?
No, other than just, if you're listening to this and you're a learning and development person that might be struggling with your ecosystem, trying to get the most out of it, there are services and solutions out there. We'd be glad to help.
Fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you.